Introducing the remarkable archetype, the dangerous gentleman. With a demeanor that commands respect and a hint of potency, he embodies strength tempered by virtue. Though his capabilities could veer towards danger, he channels his power for noble causes, serving others and safeguarding those in need. Rooted in a profound love for both God and humanity, he navigates life with discipline and purpose. In his presence, one witnesses the harmonious blend of power and benevolence, a testament to the true essence of masculinity. Step into the world of the dangerous gentleman, where strength is wielded for righteousness, and discover a captivating embodiment of honor and valor. Greetings and welcome to Storytime with the Dangerous Gentleman. Yes, I am the Dangerous Gentleman. No, I did not give myself that nickname, but I certainly did earn it. Today we're going to tell the story about another thing that I earned in my life. Probably one of my biggest accomplishments and one of the things I'm proudest of, and that is becoming a doctor. It's not an easy thing, right? I went to school for 8 years, including 4 years of undergraduate and 4 years of graduate school. Actually, I got 4 years of graduate school done in just over 3 years because I went to school year round. I had no reason to take summers off, and so I just went all the way through and finished in just over 3 years. Growing up with my mom was a teacher, my dad was a doctor. So the thing growing up was always to go to college. We just thought that's what we were supposed to do. We went to a high school that was called a college preparatory high school. Like, it was gearing us towards getting into a good college. And my parents pushed us in education. My parents pushed us towards becoming the best versions of ourselves. And so I just figured that I was going to go to college, some way in my parents' footsteps. I didn't know what exactly, but I didn't really want to become a doctor at that point. And I've shared in a separate episode about how I decided to become a chiropractor. And it's a really cool story that I'm not going to get into right now, because it has its own separate episode, but I'll maybe get into it a little bit again at some point. But when I was 15, and I've shared this story too, we moved from Arizona to Washington. And at the time, in the community that we lived in, most of the kids in that community, well, really none of us, we were all homeschooled. None of us went to the public high school, and my parents decided to not even enroll us in the local high school because it was rural. It was really small. We would be the new kids. Plus, we had gone to this advanced high school. So we would have gone to this new school, new kids. Plus, we would have probably tested in to a grade or two higher than where we would have been. So we would have been the new kids, and we would have been the smart kids and all that stuff. Plus, it just wasn't something that the kids in the community that we went up there to join, nobody had their kids in high school. So my parents homeschooled us for a little while, and if you're going to homeschool, start them young, because trying to go from public school, private school, and all this, public education, and then goes from that to homeschooling when you don't have the greatest of relationship with your parents, not a great idea. So it didn't go well. My parents tried, but it just wasn't something that we were into. And, we had attitude problems and just stuff like that. And the local community, they put on these little classes about English and history. So my parents sent us to those, and they tried to homeschool us a little bit. But really, after a year of that, I just was like, I'm going to go get my GED. So I got my GED when I was 17 years old. So technically, even though I'm a doctor, I never technically graduated from high school, but I have my doctorate. And so growing up in that family, my dad, like I said, my dad was a doctor, but also my grandpa on my mom's side was a pharmacist. Not only was he a pharmacist, he owned his own pharmacy. My uncle on that side of the family also was a pharmacist and inherited the pharmacy from my grandfather. Also on that side of the family, I have a cousin who's a pediatrician. On my side of the family, I have my dad, who's a medical doctor. I have my brother, who's a PA. And then there's me, who's a chiropractor. But I was the first one to go to college, right? So actually, if you could just edit this out and go back to where I was talking about my family all being doctors and stuff. And so I had all these doctors in my family. And then on my mom's side, my mom was a teacher. Both my grandmas on both sides of the family were teachers. Like a bunch of my cousins, aunts, and uncles are teachers. My older brother went to college. He went back to college and finished and got his teaching degree. So now he's a teacher. We're a family of doctors and teachers. And I joke with my patients that both my parents answer questions for a living, and now so do I. But so, like, we have this whole family of doctors and teachers. And so eventually, like I said before, I did go to college. I took a couple of years. Well, actually, it was like 7 or 8 years between when I got my GED, when I went to college for the first time. Did a couple of years of like Bible school and stuff like that too. But then I went away to college. I took a couple of years at the local community college. I took every single science class they had. I needed a whole bunch more, so I transferred over to Eastern Washington, went to undergrad at Eastern Washington University, which was a couple hours away. I did that for 2 years. Then I transferred over to Western States Chiropractic College in a suburb of Portland, Oregon, which is where I got my chiropractic degree. There's lots of stories about chiropractic college, but this one, so I'm going to focus today. What I want to talk about is being a doctor. I rarely push that people call me doctor. Every once in a while, I will be like, hey, that's Dr. Glanville to you, or whatever it is. But I'm not pushy like that. Like, some of my patients call me by my first name. Some people just call me doctor. Some people call me Dr. G. Some call me Dr. Drew, or whatever it is, right? And some of my friends call me Dr. Drewski. One of my good friends, his kid is like 11 or 12. He always calls me Dr. Drewski because his dad calls me that. But I don't really ever push, even though I have earned my doctorate degree. So I rarely ever push the idea, like this title, right? Even though I take a certain amount of pride in the fact that I've earned this title and I put in the work. Like, there's been a lot of times in my life where I didn't put in the work. And so I'm not real proud of some of those things. But becoming a chiropractor, becoming a doctor is something that I am very proud of, but it's not something that I push. Every once in a while, I'm like, hey, I've earned that respect, so call me doctor. Very rarely. But I remember still the first time that someone called me doctor. I'm going to tell the story of my graduation. And so I was in senior clinic. In chiropractic school, the first 2 years are primarily academic and they're teaching you technique. In the third year, we have what's called a white coat ceremony, where they bring in all the older upperclassmen students. And they have this ceremony where when you're moving from your second year into your third year, they have you come up on stage and they read your name and you put on a white coat. And so it's the white coat ceremony. And then you go into this student clinic where you are assigned other students in the school to treat them. And you work under a supervising clinician and they teach you. This is where you really kind of learn how to be a chiropractor. Start to learn and putting some of the skills to use. So you do that for 9 months. Technically third year, but 9 months. And then your fourth year, you move up to the outpatient clinic where they turn you loose on the public. So now you've had 2 years of academics primarily. You've had a year in the student clinic, and now they're going to turn you loose on the public. Once again, I get assigned a supervising clinician who is a doctor who has or is practicing out in the field and comes in and gives of their time in the clinic to teach other students. And I got a great supervising clinician. He was a chiropractor, he was an acupuncturist, and he was also a naturopath. So he knew a ton of stuff. And everybody was always, because you put your name in, right? You asked which clinician you wanted to go with, right? You told them, you made your picks. And everyone always wanted to go with this guy because his book of business, his part of the clinic was always full. There were so many patient contacts that you had to have in order to get your degree. Like, you had to have so many different adjustments. You had to do complicated cases. You had to do all these case write-ups and da. And some of the clinicians were known for being busier, so you could get your patient contacts faster. And some of the clinicians didn't have as good a reputation and they tended to be slower. And so students didn't want to be with those ones. But this guy that I was with, he was one of the ones that everybody wanted to go with. And so I put my name in to be him, and I got chosen to be in his group. And so I learned a ton of stuff from this guy. Like, I mean, everything from paperwork to adjusting techniques, exam flows, all that kind of stuff that's where all that stuff really starts to come together. And I ended up getting all of my patient requirements, all of that stuff done early. And so I got to spend my entire third term of that year out in the clinic working for another doctor, where again, I got exposed to all kinds of really cool stuff. Almost went to go work for that doctor. Didn't work out, but that's a different story. But anyway, so on graduation weekend, my family, my mom, my older brother, my younger brother, and my sister all drove down to Portland for my graduation. And my dad flew up from Colorado for my graduation. I didn't think that my twin brother was going to make it. I didn't know he was coming. I thought he was, he kind of led me on that he wasn't going to be able to make it. Anyway, it's just kind of fun because I was sitting in the back in the student area of the outpatient clinic and I get paged. Andrew Glanville, please come to the front desk. You have a visitor. And I was like, what? Okay. All right. I just figured maybe it's a patient or something like that. And so I start walking up front and all the gals at the front are sitting there and they're just looking at me and they got these big old cheesy smiles on their face. And I'm like, what's going on here? And they're like, and I turn around and there's my twin brother. He had flown up to surprise me to be a part of graduation. So that was kind of fun. So that was on like a Thursday. So we got there like 2 days ahead of graduation. So we had a chance to kind of hang out for a couple of days while I still had some stuff, just a little stuff to finish up here and there. And then my family came in the next evening and we all went out to dinner and that kind of stuff. Saturday was graduation. And like I said, my dad's a medical doctor and he has been a medical doctor. Well, at the time, that was back in 2008. Yeah, I graduated in 2008. So he had been a medical doctor at that point for over 30 years. He's now been in practice for, I think, about 50 years. And like, say what you want. Like, I have tremendous amounts of respect for my dad as a medical doctor. He's always treated patients good. He's always been there for people. He's always listened to people. I have multiple times thought about like, what kind of chiropractic practice do I want? And I was like, even though I'm a chiropractor, I want to practice. I want to model one after my dad. My dad wasn't a specialist. Nowadays, everyone specializes in a lung doctor, gastric doctor, baby doctor, whatever it is. Like there's technical terms for all those, but everyone specializes in, and they get more and more and more specialized. So they only know about their thing, right? Well, in an age of all that specialization, my dad, he specialized in family practice, which means he had to know a little bit about everything. And so he delivered babies, he set bones, he stitched, he did minor surgery, he did hospital rounds, like everything. And so when I was thinking about what kind of a chiropractor I wanted to be, I wanted to be and still want to be a family chiropractor. I want to treat moms. I want to treat babies. I want to treat dads. I want to treat teenagers. I want to treat athletes. I want to treat old people. I want to treat young people. Like I just want to be the go-to guy for chiropractic. And I want to know about chiropractic and I want to know about nutrition and I want to know about exercise and I want to know about all these different things to where if I don't have the answer, I at least know enough to point you in the right direction. I fancy myself a family practice chiropractor. My favorite is taking care of babies and pregnant moms because I love helping people bring healthy babies into the world and seeing that next generation. But anyway, here we are at graduation and, I've got my cap and gown on and people are taking pictures. They're having professional photos taken and all this stuff. I'm going to probably get a little emotional because it was I got emotional at the time. I might get a little emotional again. We're taking pictures and everyone's giving hugs and stuff like that. And, my dad comes up to me and he's like, he kind of leans in and he gives me a hug and he's just like, and then he kind of sits back and he reaches out his hand and he shook my hand and he said, I just want to be the first person to call you Dr. Glanville. And, it was just a really powerful moment for me because Again, say what you want about people, but as a medical doctor, I have a tremendous amount of respect for my dad and how he treated people and his reputation in the medical community. So when he was the first one to call me doctor, it meant a lot. Like, there's no one else in the world that's ever called me doctor that has meant as much as that time when my dad called me doctor. It meant a lot. And at that moment, like, I knew that I was carrying on a legacy. I knew that I had earned that. And I knew that I had my dad's respect, not just as a son, not just as a man, and all kinds of other ways too. But I had his respect as a doctor, as an educated person, right? I was the first person in my family of my brothers and sisters to finish college and get any kind of advanced degree. So it meant a lot. In a lot of ways, I do take after my dad. And there's a lot of ways that I take after my dad. I'm going to finish with one other cool little story. I remember one day when I was sitting in class, I was sitting in physiology class, and we were talking about the human kidney and all the different amazing things that the kidney does and how it balances so many things and how fine-tuned and just how everything works on such a microscopic, everything has to fit when it comes to the kidneys. It's very precise how everything has to fit together and work together and levels that things have to be at. And these little microscopic tubules that you have to magnify on a telescope to even be able to see are just tweaking these numbers all day long. And I remember getting out of class and just being completely blown away by how amazing the human kidney is. And just thinking how amazing God was when he designed that and how precise everything had to be, not just to help us function optimally, but to even keep us alive. It's unbelievable how the kidney works just to keep us alive. And like the amount of water we drink, the amount of this, that, and the everything that has to stay in balance, salts and all that. And I got out of class, and this was the only time that I ever did this in my entire education. But I called my dad when I got out of class and I said, Dad, I just learned about the kidneys. The kidneys are amazing. I couldn't see his face because we were on the phone, but I could hear the smile on his face. And he said, Andrew, I felt the same way when I learned about the kidney. I was blown away at the awesomeness of God and how he designed us so intricately. And it was when I was learning about the kidney. So here I am. We're sharing this moment. Just very impactful for me. And the cool thing is that my brother, who also now works in the medical profession as a PA, he did the same thing when he was learning about the human kidney. He got out of the class where he was learning about that and called my dad and had a very similar conversation with him. So we get these things like we're all Glanvilles, right? And now we're medical professionals. And so we have this shared bond. And even about the kidney, right? Our brains work on that level. I remember thinking, like, even when my brother told me that he had the same conversation, I was just like, it brought me back to that time when my dad leaned in, shook my hand, and said, I want to be the first to call you Dr. Glanville. And that's one of the reasons that I became a chiropractor, that I became a doctor, is because I was inspired by my dad. And so him being the first person to call me doctor, I'll never forget it. It'll be something I'll carry with me to my grave. So just remember that it's important what you call people, especially when it comes from your dad or even other men that you respect, but especially your dad. When you have that same mutual level of respect, father to son, so not just father to son, but man to man, doctor to doctor, or whatever it is that you do for a living, be proud of it. Be proud of it. And it's great when you do have the approval of your dad, but sometimes you don't get that. Would my dad be any less proud of me had I not become a doctor? I don't think so. But we have that shared mutual respect. We have that shared mutual, we've been through something together. not together, but we've both been through very similar experiences, because a graduate school program like that, it's intense on a level that most people don't ever experience. And so we've been through that. And for him to say that to me, and really, like, I don't seek validation, right? But it meant so much coming from my dad. So I guess that's my message to you. When you hear that validation, wherever it comes from, accept it. Like, know that you've earned it. Whatever work, whatever you do, put your all into it, so that when you get called something, you know that you've earned it. If you half-ass it and you didn't earn it, then when someone calls you that, or when someone refers to you that way, there's going to be this imposter thing that's going on inside you. But I know I earned my doctorate degree, and I know that I earned being called doctor by my dad. I know I've kind of rambled here a little bit at the end, but I certainly hope that you've appreciated my story, because I have, and I will talk to you next time. So if you like this content, please give it a rating, a review, and share it with your friends. Also, if you'd like to learn a little bit more about me and what I'm all about and what I can maybe do for you, check out my website at thedangerousgentleman.org. That's thedangerousgentleman.org. Thank you for listening.